Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Norm Laviolette. I am co-founder and CEO of a place called IA Innovation. It's a subsidiary of a larger organization that I run. It's called Improvisation. Improvisation is an improvisational sketch comedy theater. We are headquartered out of Boston, Massachusetts. And I'm sure you're all pretty familiar with what improvisation is, but just so you know, basically, my organization makes shit up for a living. That's what we do. Maybe your organizations do that as well. That's what we do. And so it's very interesting because what we're talking about here is team building and diverse team building. And even what this is titled from day one, it got me excited because we are in the process of launching an improvisation in New York City. And so we are building that team. And when you build a team on stage, right, it's so easy to overlook the talent that is out there. So often, when I see people build teams, and I hear the word diversity, we're gonna create a diverse team. I feel like sometimes people look at it and say, well, that's code for not taking the best people, and that's absolutely BS. That's absolutely BS. And so, to give you an example of our cast here as it's being put together in New York City, right? We have a white man, a gay man, a black man, a woman from Iran, right? Does that mean that they somehow aren't the funniest people that are available? Absolutely not, right? They are equally as funny. They earn the job. Those of us in charge, though, have to be willing to say, well, what am I doing? Am I looking hard enough? Am I making sure that those people know that they're wanted, know that they're welcome, know that we want to see them audition? Because if we don't do that, if we just do the traditional methods, right? You put out your audition notice, great, everybody comes in, and you take who's there. Well, I know in the improvisational comedy business that there is a disproportionate amount of medium-sized, brown-haired white guys. And I like that you're laughing that I'm giving myself medium-sized billing. I'm a little lower than medium-sized, right? So I know that, okay? So if I'm going to use those traditional methods, that's going to be what I get. That's who I'm going to see. So it becomes important that if you're, in my role here as a producer or director, making sure that I'm going out and saying, well, no, there's got to be many more ways to make sure that the people that we want to see at these auditions know that they're welcome. We have a couple more roles to fill on Friday. If any of you want to show up and quit your day jobs, let me know. We can take a look at you. And that's what it is that we do. Once we get into a cast, though, some of you may be familiar with the concept of yes and. Anybody familiar with the idea of yes and? Anybody hear that? Right? Yeah, right? Yes and. Right? Somebody raised their head and somebody was like, yes, I know it. Right? And in some ways, in improvisation, I almost feel like it is a little overblown. But the idea of yes and is how we continue to have a dynamic team and grow the perspectives of what we're doing on stage. So once we build a team, right, you're bringing it. So let me paint a picture for you, okay? I'm probably a little bit different than the other speakers you're going to have here because I think I already swore once. So I'll paint a picture for you. When you perform at Improvisation in Boston, and the theater is very similar here in New York, you're on stage on the ground floor. You're surrounded by 200 people. They're drunk, and they're yelling blank at you. It's the definition of a hostile work environment. Okay, if in your workplace, if people are drunk and yelling shit at you, take it to HR, right? That's not acceptable. In our environment, right? No, that's what we do, right? We ask people to give us that kind of input, and so then together as a group, 6 of us, we usually go on stage with 6 people. As a group, we quickly have to get together on the same page through many different comedic sensibilities, world views, world experiences, all come together and be able to put out a product immediately, which is hopefully comedy, and make that audience laugh. So how do we do that? And sure, you work long and hard, and you're funny, so and you have a comedic voice. But to survive on that stage, we have to rely on each other, and we have to keep each other's ideas moving forward. Yes and, as we teach it, isn't about moving your own idea forward, right? If you want to move your own idea forward, there's stand-up comedy, right? That's a great medium for you to have your own voice and put that out. On stage, what we do is we take this concept of yes and, which all it means, right? All it means is I'm listening to you, I'm truly trying to understand the gist of what you're saying, and I'm now going to build off of what I heard from you. And if I know you're going to listen to me, and then you're going to build off of that, together we can fly. Right? And so what that allows us to do is have all these different voices come together to create one show. And when we create that one show, we're presenting to 200 people. I can't present to 200 people. I can't do a show for 200 people and have all of your sense of humor. It would be impossible. Your sense of humor is going to be very different than yours, right? But together as a group, when we go on stage, well, I'm essentially crowdsourcing everybody else's talent. Right? So if I'm a performer in that cast, I'm funny, I'm good, all right, I can do some stuff. But boy, with 5 other people from 5 different points of view and 5 different backgrounds, now I have access to that. Now I've got access to your funny. I've got access to what you can do. And when we think of it that way, right, now we can crowdsource this idea of diversity to do something much larger. And it's not a code word for like, oh, well, you didn't take the funniest person. That's not true. We do take the funniest people, but we're making sure that we're not limiting ourselves to what we think is funny. Because as a producer and as a leader, I have my own sense of humor. I don't think everything is funny, but if I'm not careful, I'm going to craft a show that only I think is funny. I'm going to be like, look at that show, it's super funny. And people are going to be like, no, it's super lame, right? Come on, you're making dad jokes. I'm like, I love dad jokes, right? So no. So you have to be very careful about that, and you have to be very mindful of it. And so our organization, sure, it's a theater, and we do that. And look, the consequences for us on stage, right, is you just don't laugh, and it feels very painful and very bad. But ultimately, we're still going to go to the bar either way, okay? So I understand that, especially with the speakers that came before and are coming after, have far more real-world issues that they're dealing with. But what I can say is through the time at our theater, we've developed these training programs, not just for our actors. We have a training center. We teach hundreds of students, and we teach these things around the world. And if you have this idea of yes and, right? One of the most interesting things that I've recently done is I had the opportunity to, certainly present kind of like this, but in Dubai. And it was very hands-on. So we had people come up on stage, doing improv. Now you can imagine that that's a very different culture. Most everybody there was from the Middle East or Africa. They did not know or were not all that familiar with improvisation. They were very buttoned up. And the conference itself was called the International Association for Internal Auditors. That's more exciting than who they were, to give you an idea of exactly how boring that title is. And if there are any internal auditors here, I'm sure you're great. But the idea was to then, you're never going to get people to volunteer. And I'm like, I will. Because I'm going to create a culture that has them want to do it. And within minutes, I had, I think, 250 people up. I mean, people in full-on dashikis and burqas and abayas, all up doing improv, doing all these kind of things, and it was amazing. And the reason is because we use this idea of yes and, which is I'm going to listen to what you have to say, and I'm going to encourage you to say something back, and I'm going to support it. And if we do that, right? If we do that in our small groups, or if we do that in our larger organizations, you really get access to so much more talent, so much more funny than you could ever think of. So just, I've got like 30 seconds left. I open it up to questions. Any questions or thoughts or ideas about improvisation or anything like that of what I've just said? And you don't have to. I'm not going to feel bad if you don't. I'm used to that. Cool. So that's what I would leave you with, right, is this idea. What's that? Did somebody say something? No? Damn it. Nobody said anything. I'm looking at you drinking out of the water. Very good. Oh, yeah. Okay. You have a hand up. Go ahead. Oh, great.
If anything, it helps so much with public speaking and with being involved and completely connected with your environment rather than thinking about your performance. And that's something that was tremendously helpful in my career.
Well, thank you for validating everything I just said. It makes me feel better. And I heard somebody say earlier, and I'm wrapped up now, but diversity is more than just what we said, color, sexual orientation. It is allowing, improvisation allows those people to say, well, maybe I'm an introvert. These are the things that actually get people out. You find a lot of introverts there. So thank you very much. My name is Norm Laviolette, Improvisation. Hopefully we'll see you here at our theater in New York.